Hello, good evening. I'm Christina with AskaMontessorian, and I'm here with my mom, Sandy Houston.
Hello.
Tonight, we're going to talk to you all about deviations and normalization. I've had a lot of people ask me about how to help their children begin to control themselves. So this is kind of like a nanny 911 episode, if you will. So, Mom, the first question I have for you is, what were some of the most challenging situations that you found yourself in the classroom?
Well, most of the challenging ones are children that were ADHD. And those children can make it difficult, for the whole classroom because they're kind of bouncing off the walls, which disturbs the whole classroom.
And what were some of the things that you did to help the children learn to control themselves in those situations?
Well, a lot of those children need large muscle exercises. So you want to make sure that you do the practical life exercises like scrubbing the chairs, scrubbing stools, scrubbing a tire, washing dishes, preparing snack, and make sure that you keep them busy because they always want to be busy. So you make sure that they take responsibility of the classroom. So you make sure that they have certain responsibilities.
Can you give us an example of a child who was particularly challenging for you? What that child did in the classroom and how you were able to help normalize that behavior?
Well, it's like some children will disturb others. It's like they'll walk on the carpets, they won't follow the rules, they disturb the class, and they do it a lot, for attention. So you want to make sure that those children get the attention that they need. But they also sometimes you can send them outside with the assistant and let them run. And after they've done so many laps around the playground, they've calmed down to where they can come back in and they are then can choose work and it's like can concentrate a bit better.
So, what suggestions would you have for parents who don't have access to a Montessori school? And what things would you recommend that they do in their homes with their own children?
Well, children don't have access to Montessori even at home. Even the Montessori children should be responsible, have some responsibilities, and it should be a family situation of discussing exact what responsibilities should they have. Should they be the one that unloads the dishwasher or loads the dishwasher or mops the floor or keeps their bathroom clean? It's like naturally they would keep their own bedroom clean and make their own bed. But then there's other responsibilities that you want to get them involved in. It's like you want them to help with the cooking, maybe help with the shopping. You sit down and do a shopping list with them and try and get them involved. And it's like whatever the family dynamics are. If there's a pet, make them responsible for the pet, to feed the pet, make sure the pet has water, and you take care of their litter box if it's a cat, or walk the dog if there's a dog, so on. So You make them as involved as you can with the family dynamics.
And one of the things that I've seen some of the families do is create a job chart. So the children, especially if you have, 3, 4, or 5 children in the same home in the afternoon, they can go to the job chart and you have specific jobs for their names, and then they can move their name to the job that they're working on. So you have the list of jobs on one side of the chart, and then you have their names, for instance, a Velcro board, and then they can move their name as a little Velcro strip and put it next to the job. A lot of the Montessori classrooms have job charts for the children, so you can do this at home as well.
Or you can use the magnetic strips.
Right.
It's like to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's nice if you compensate them with a little allowance and then start teaching them as like what, how to save the money, and it's like and what they would spend it on, even starting out at a very young age. So they're compensated for the responsibilities that they do. But then, they have the consequences of their actions. Like it affects the whole family if they don't do their responsibility. It's like what happens if you didn't feed your pet, or you didn't give your pet water, things like that, or if you didn't, load the dishwasher and run it, so on. Anyway.
Like natural and logical consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Natural consequences are brought on by the environment, whereas the logical consequences might be something like the parent getting involved and creating a consequence. You want as many natural consequences as possible, so the child feels responsible for the environment as well. Like
Correct.
They have some control over it. Right. At what age would you start to involve the child in finances? How early can you start, and what kind of things can you do with them?
Oh, you can start at 3. You start young. It's like you give them maybe a quarter. It's like, what do you mean? What can you do with them? You show them how saving it up is like that. Eventually they could buy some little toy that they want.
Right. So even at 3 years old, they can help you with the grocery list, and they can go to the store with you with their allowance. And when they're walking around the store, they can see how much things cost.
Correct.
And how, what they can buy with how much money they have.
Right.
And you always incorporate grace and courtesy and give them the opportunity to talk to the cashiers.
Mm-hmm.
And use all of their wonderful lessons. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Please feel free to ask us any questions and take advantage of the opportunity to learn from my mom. You want to tell us a little bit about your background?
Oh. Well, I took training in 1967 with Dr. and Mrs. Claremont. Dr. Claremont was the Dr. Montessori's translator, and he translated the book, The Absorbent Mind, from Italian to English. And his wife, Mrs. Claremont, was responsible for some of the geography material and all of the prehistory material, pre-literature. She's responsible for the timeline that elementary teachers are familiar with. And then also Miss Lena Wicker-Marate, who was a student of Dr. Montessori's in India. And when Dr. Montessori opened her first school in India, she had Miss Lena Wicker-Marate be one of the teachers. And then Estella Palmieri, who assisted Mrs. Claremont until Mrs. Claremont passed away. And then last but not least, of course, Mario Montessori. And the situation that I was in was unusual because during our training course, Dr. Claremont passed away. So then we had lessons on Saturday that Miss Lena would give, because Miss Lena was giving her training in Palo Alto. So she would come down to Santa Monica and help Mrs. Claremont when Dr. Claremont passed away. And then Mario also helped, and then he finally chose Estella Colmenero Palmieri to assist Mrs. Claremont, which she did until Mrs. Claremont passed away in 1972, and then Estella became the primary AMI teacher trainer in Los Angeles, California. Besides that, I've opened 9 primary schools and 5 Montessori charter schools, considered to be a pioneer in Montessori charter schools. So 50 years, I think it's 50 now, being involved in Montessori.
Tell me about the Montessori Consortium.
Well, the Montessori Consortium is what I started in about 1997, no, 99. Anyway, was getting the Montessori charter schools together and talking to them that if we pulled together, that we probably could write for grants. So that's what we did. It's like finally gathered them all together, so we worked together and were able to write grants and get grant money for different things, like the training of assistants was one of them. The special ed classes was another. So various things that the Montessori charter schools needed.
Is the consortium still around?
It's still there.
Nice. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So before we sum up, do you have any more suggestions that you can offer moms who might be at their wits' end with challenging situations at home in relation to their children's behavior?
Well, you need to have a lot of patience. It doesn't do any good to get upset about things that they do. You want to have an attitude that you're guiding them, and there's nothing really to get upset about unless it's a situation that is detrimental in regards to their safety. Other than that, there's no need to get upset.
Okay.
Of course, I was observed quite often by Mario Montessori, and back then I didn't realize he called me a natural, and I didn't realize my calmness in the classroom was due to having a low functioning thyroid and low blood pressure. So having that helped a lot in regards to having lots of patience.
What do you think one of the most impactful things that, I'm trying to think of how to word this. How do you think being trained with Mario impacted you the most?
It wasn't only Mario. It's like every single one of my trainers, including Margaret Stevenson, my elementary teacher trainer. Every one of them had a relationship with Dr. Montessori. So, how many people would actually have a trainer that would know the absorbent mind as well as Dr. Claremont? So the philosophy in our training was a bit more than what I see nowadays. A truly understanding of Montessori. That it's not just the materials. It's having totally respect for the child. It's like you're doing your lessons, you do a lot of observation, you're looking at trying to match the child to the material, you're looking at what the child needs. Like, we talked about children that are hyperkinetic. Well, they need large muscle control activities. And so you try and match them with those type of activities, whether it's like having a balance beam or the scooter boards, things that are on the playground, like walking on the balance beam, and making sure that you have these things where they could go out into the outdoor environment and do some of these things. And then you'll find when they come back into the classroom, they're much calmer. So overall, I would say, in regards to my training, being so fortunate to have the trainers that I had, we had a deeper understanding of the Montessori philosophy.
Is there anything else you would like to say to our families?
Oh, it's like certainly to the families, they should try and put them in a Montessori school.
Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. As always, please feel free to ask a Montessorian. And as little Greg likes to remind me, please click like and subscribe to see more videos on Montessori. I invite you to ask any questions that you would like me to bring up to my mom with her background. She's a wealth of information. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good evening. Thank you, Mom.
Oh, you're welcome.